And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal, Dan L. This is my channel. Let's all take a moment and mourn the loss of Cal L. Okay, let's get right to it. This video is entitled Compassionate Conservatism Part 2. I've already done Part 1, and quite frankly, I'm like Indiana Jones. I'm making it up as I go along, so I don't know if there's going to be 3, 4 parts, 5 parts, 6 parts, 7 parts, 10. I don't know how many parts there's going to be to this series, but it is a series of videos that will all be entitled Compassionate Conservatism. And in the previous video, Part 1, I was reading from a December 10th, 2020 transcript of a Rush Limbaugh radio show. Let's get right back into it. So this is Rush Limbaugh. And he's talking about how the Republicans, they don't want to believe anything about the 2016 Russia collusion narrative being phony. So I'm going to read, this is straight from Rush Limbaugh verbatim. So the Republicans just chalk it up to us being a bunch of kooks, a bunch of scaremongers. We don't really know what's going on. Because of people like us, the civility is gone from our politics, and we don't speak politely to each other anymore. We're not respectful of our opponents anymore, and it's just so sad, and we must fix it. There's no time for any of these niceties. There's an ongoing threat, and it's been out there for a while, a threat to this country and what kind of country it's going to be. Will it remain the country of our founding? Because if it doesn't, let me tell you what's going to happen. You remember the name John O'Sullivan? John O'Sullivan is former aide to Lady Thatcher in the United Kingdom. He was editor at National Review under William F. Buckley for the longest time. I'm looking for the quote that I want to attribute to him. I can do it myself, but I want to find the exact quote, but it's buried here somewhere. Bottom line is this. He came up with the O'Sullivan theorem, and it is this. Any organization, any group of people that is not exclusively, explicitly conservative every day will eventually become liberal. That's a natural flow. That's the natural tendency. Conservatism, in other words, is a daily commitment. Conservatism is a daily commitment to its principles and ideals. It's a commitment every day to make as much of your life and your business and whatever conservative in values as you can. Okay, so anyway, I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking that all in myself right now. So you just heard what I said. Here's how I'm going to stop for a second. There's plenty more to this transcript. And remember, this is from December 10th, 2020. I'm going to comment on what he just said about John O'Sullivan, the British politician. The interest, and by the way, over in Great Britain, what they call a conservative, that would be what we call a liberal. But again, I hate the word liberal is a terrible description of the left. There's nothing liberal going on the left. Again, in a different video, I read you the definition of the word liberal. It's anti-authoritarian in nature. And the left is all about authoritarianism, being tyrants. Anyway, so he's talking about John, and he does say, and basically what they're saying is this. I'm going to rephrase it. I'm going to paraphrase it in a way that I think better describes what he's talking about. It's about core values. And when John O'Sullivan says you have to commit yourself to being a conservative every day, that means you have to remind yourself that you have core values and you know what they are, and you have to reinforce them every day. And what are your core values may be what the core values of the left are. Your core values may be what the center is, the centrists, the moderates, the independents. And we know what their core values are? They don't have core values. The core value of the center is they're proud to not have anything they believe in. They just know they hate the left or they hate the right, and that's all they care about, hating everyone else, thinking everyone else is wrong and they're right, not because of something they believe in, but just because they don't like or trust anyone else. And then there's the so-called core values of the political right, the conservatives. That's why this video is entitled Compassionate, because compassionate conservatism, coined by Bush Jr., George Bush Jr. What it really means is leftism. That's what compassionate conservatism, the literal the factual translation of compassionate conservatism is: give the left what they want. Be like the left. If you're a Republican, be like a Democrat. Um, and so I agree with Rush Limbaugh's interpretation of the John O'Sullivan theorem, which is if you don't practice your core values every day, if you don't think intellectually about your core values, if you don't recognize why they're important, if you don't refine them, if you don't strengthen your core values. And again, people on the right have them, people on the left have them, people in the center don't. But the core values of people on the left is the only value they have is the accumulation of power, world domination. They only have one value. I need to be the slave master, and the world I live in needs to be my slave. That's the core value of the left. The right has obviously, it actually is about egalitarianism. It is about liberty. It is about self-rule. It is about civilization. It is about progress. That's what the right is. That's what they're capable of being about. The problem is, and again, the O'Sullivan theorem is so important here. Most people on the right don't know why core values are important, and they certainly don't know how to strengthen their own core values and reaffirm them every day. And so what happens, and Rush Limbaugh is absolutely correct, people who are on the right, eventually over time they end up on the left. And why? Quite frankly, because for them it's easier. To be on the right requires discipline, dedication, and adherence to objective reality, being a fan of science rather than fantasy, being a fan of objective reality over fictional reality, subjective reality. And that requires effort. Now, what you get out of that is civilization. But you know it's easy to do? Just to wake up every day and give in to your worst impulses, which is what the left does. And so people on the right are like, man, I have to deny, I've got some, because every human being has dark impulses. So people on the right, they have to say no to those impulses. They have to deny their own dark impulses because everyone has these. And I would say eventually, given enough time, almost everyone on the right just gives up because it's a daily battle. And they end up in the center or more often than not on the left. Now, once in a while, you see that in reverse. As I've mentioned many times, Candace Owens started on the hardcore left. Dave Rubin, hard leftist. What was it? There's another guy, I forget his name now. Anyway, so there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of people who started on the left and they migrated over to the right. Or at least they migrated over to what Dave Rubin calls classical liberalism, which is open-mindedness, which is an acceptance and a reverence for objective reality, in my opinion. But also, it's also being creative. But anyway, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here. So let's get back to the Rush Limbaugh transcript from December 10th, 2020. Because if that doesn't happen, you or your organization, company, your club, whatever, will eventually become liberal. And again, I'm stopping for a second. You know that I hate it when they use the word liberal, but in this case, we know what the liberal in the United States of America means leftist. Sadly, the left has kidnapped the word liberal and they've gotten the people on the right to use that narrative. People on the right describe the left as liberal and they're not. But anyway, let's get back to the transcript. And it's true. And that's where we are. Now we have the Republican Party in significant membership, significant parts of it not seeing the threat, or if they see it, not wishing to acknowledge it. And if they do not actively support, advance, explain, promote conservatism on a daily basis, then they will become liberal. They will gradually lose whatever it is about them that are conservative or that is conservative, and many of them are not that conservative anymore anyway. But it doesn't matter because they are being replaced. There's massive numbers of young conservatives out there. Turning Point USA is one such organization, but there are countless organizations and groups and rallying efforts out there. Young conservatives are getting involved because they understand the threat. They believe in the founding of the country. They know American history. They want to maintain it. They do not want to see their futures destroyed with the communists effectively winning control of the country, which is what we're up against. And I'm going to stop for a second. I would argue that the totalitarian left has already won in the USA. It doesn't mean that the good guys can't eventually take the country back from the totalitarian left. But as far as I'm concerned, every single mechanism in our society, which allows our society to even operate at the most fundamental level, is under the control of the totalitarian left. America is now a tyrannical society, in my opinion. You can have your own opinion, but that's my opinion. And to me, the evidence is all around you. Are you kidding me? The government told you for 2 weeks to go home and stay in your house to flatten the curve. What did the 2 weeks turn into? In some states, still going on, isn't it? So what? That's over 18 months. 2 weeks turns into over 18. And Joe Biden has said, and many people in the Democrat Party have said, well, we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know when this pandemic slavery is going to end. You may have to stay in your house for the rest of your life. You may have to socially distance for the rest of your life. You may have to take 1,000 booster shots. You may have to wear a mask. You may be our slave, and you damn well better not complain about it. And this may be for the rest of your life, and it might be for the life of your children, and it might be for the life of your grandchildren, and it might be for the life of your great grandchildren. See, they're not hiding it. And Rush Limbaugh talked about this before he died as well. The left isn't hiding what they're about, what their goal is, what their mission is, what the end game is for leftism. The end game is a global slavery that makes 1850 Mississippi look like a picnic. Let me repeat that to you. Enslaving an entire world, and the living conditions make being an African slave in 1850 Mississippi look like fun times. That's how bad this is going to get. And we're certainly, for some people, they're already there. They're already living that nightmare. But let's go back to the transcript again from Rush Limbaugh. And the reason that we are here, the reason we've gotten to this point, is because over a number of years, even decades, not enough Republicans understood the threat. Not enough Republicans understood who the left really was and what their objectives have always been. When they were told that this is what the left is, they make fun of people who believe, you got to shut up, Rush. You're sounding like a kook. That's not what the left is about. Come on. Don't join that wacko bunch. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to stop again for a second. I think that was another important insight from Rush Limbaugh. Whenever someone doesn't want to hear the truth, and again, I'll go back to the story I told about the 8-year-old child who believes in Santa Claus. If you're an 8-year-old child and you believe in Santa Claus and someone tells you it's not real, in order to preserve the fiction of Santa Claus, you have to label that person as a kook. That person's a what? No Santa Claus? What a wacko you are. I believe in Santa. It's obvious. Have you not seen all the Christmas trees? Why would there be Christmas trees if there's no Santa Claus? Why would there be presents under the tree? Who do you think put the presents there? Obviously, it was Santa Claus. So what Rush Limbaugh is pointing out when he talks about Republicans is this is how they deal with people who point out to them objective reality. When people, and we're talking about not the Republican voter base, we're talking about the elected Republicans. When you talk to them and say the the Democrats are an existential threat to civilization, their response is, gosh, you're part of those. You're part of QAnon, by the way, which I think is a false flag leftist operation. You're part of QAnon and Alex Jones and Gavin McGinnis, is that his name? Anyway, you're part of these wacko crowds. You're part of Proud Boys. Proud Boys, by the way, is not some sort of domestic Nazi operation. It's people who are proud to be Americans. Anyway, but I don't want to get too much in the weeds on that subject. I just want to point out that Rush Limbaugh completely correctly identified elected Republicans. They can't handle reality, so they have to label everyone who delivers objective reality to them as a wacko. Let's get back to the, actually, that's going to end Compassionate Conservatism Part 2. Come back for the third video in the series. Thank you. See you in a little bit.